There's a famous slogan by JP Morgan which says that the right relationship is everything.
That's where the MP, that's where the government is. No, this is all people around here. That's where they bang the table. That's where they were banging on the table when they passed the NHS bill. Inside there is where there are pigs in there. Pigs. But today, my friends, we're going to go and find out where's Daddy's pig. Where's Daddy's pig? You see, they're in there representing us. Why? Why would they represent us? Why would they sell off our NHS? Is that in our best interest? Is it in our best interest? Is it in the interest of children in the palliative care? Is it in the best interest of people with cancer? It's not. The private profiteers like Serco, Richard Branson, Care UK, Ramsey, so they done the deal down there at the House of Lords. They're officials. They're on the directors. And in there you've got the officials and the media is the tool. But the machine, the people the skullduggery, the skull fuckers, they're in the banks. They're the ones in the banks, the private equity firms, the ones that want to profit, the ones that will profit. And today I've got the pig, and I'm pushing it. It's a long way. It's a long way on my hands and knees. I've got the knee pads, and I've got some supporters.
The NHS, this new outsourcing thing, this is like, it's privatisation, and where they got the word outsourcing from. It's like privatising Peterborough, Cambridgeshire, palliative care of dying children in Devon. They've got PFIs, they've got so much debt in the NHS. It's a virtual controlled demolition from within.
Yeah, well, Brandon Lewis, who is the Prime Minister, has made it very clear that they are seriously considering privatisation, despite their protestations to the contrary. He took a paper through to the obscure House of Commons committee called the House of Commons Regulatory Reform Committee, which actually talked about enabling wholesale externalisation of all fire and rescue services. He was doing it on the basis of saying that would be necessary to enable Cleveland Fire Authority to create a mutual in that part of the country. But the problem with that is twofold, really. Firstly, in order to achieve what he said he wanted to achieve in Cleveland, he would open the door for other fire authorities to just simply externalise the fire and rescue service without even bothering to establish a mutual. And the second problem is, even if Cleveland or anywhere else for that matter establishes a mutual, after 3 years they have to then re-tender the fire and rescue service, and it has to be an open tender, and that would mean that the private sector could come in and take over the contract. So that's a very real fear, a very real worry, and in spite of what Eric Pickle says, what Sir Brandon Lewis says, that they would do nothing that would lead to privatisation, they are still persisting with this mutualisation agenda, and so we're continuing to press them to actually drop that and to make sure that the fire and rescue service remains in public ownership.
I always start these presentations with just taking a step back and just explaining what we mean by mutual, because mutual as a term is something that doesn't really actually have a strict legal definition, and it's something that can have lots of different forms depending on the environment and the context it's working in. Behind me there is our three-pronged definition that we use. So it's an organisation that's spun out of the public sector, that continues to deliver public services as a whole or as a part of its purpose, and that involves a high degree of employee control. Now, when you're looking at that, you'll realise that is pretty broad, that is pretty permissive, and that's very deliberate, because we took the view that actually in different contexts, in different service areas, different things will work well and different things will not work so well. The key thing here really is that we believe that putting staff at the heart of the way the enterprise is run actually helps improve the enterprise's performance.
That's what I mean. It's a shame the Labour Party doesn't do the workers what she's done for the rich, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, the NHS is up for sale. Royal Mail, Queen's for sale. I mean, that's outrageous. They're offering shares to the Royal Mail to the people who already own it.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what the kind of support is for that, because when they've done that before, when they've done that with the oil industry, for example, the gas industry, there was a time when those industries were settled. What we're looking at now is ongoing disputes in the post office industry. So it's a bit more unsettling for them, it's a bit more iffy for them. They're speculators and gamblers anyway, but it will be interesting to see just how they're going to react to that. And the other point of interest is if they succeed in doing what they intend to do, how long it will be before they attack the workers' pay conditions. What they're clearly saying is, well, their pay's been in between, and they could have more shift systems, and they could do this, that. So that will be an interesting conflict in the future, I think.
I mean, I just find it phenomenal that they can sell off the Royal Mail, or just there's no limits to what they'll sell off, is there?
No, actually, they're worse than this.
In terms of the legal framework for fire, at the moment there are certain limitations on what a fire authority may choose to contract out, in particular around those emergency activities. Whilst that means that there is scope to contract out for quite a range of activity, in terms of actual activity that happens, a sizable amount of the service, the emergency activities as things stand will not be something that could be contracted out.
The American linguist Noam Chomsky said that they create these situations through defunding. So, like with the NHS, we've seen with Bedford Paediatric Unit, they defund the services, then they do an audit on it, shows it's failing, and they use that as their excuses for privatisation.
In terms of arriving at a more complete contracting out situation, where there isn't any retained function in relation to emergency services, it would be a question of legislative change.
What I think would be interesting is to look at the previous sounds, the sound of the energy industry. To look at where the energy industry was then, in terms of how people could access gas and electricity and what cost it was, and to look at how people access it now and what cost it is now. And what we will find, I'm actually sure, is the cost of energy is a fixed price.
Yeah.
Where's that money gone?
Well, they say they sell it under the proviso of competition, don't they?
Probably have sold their shares.
Yeah.
Right, the small people that bought 10, 15, 20, 100 shares or whatever, they probably sold their shares. Now it's owned by probably 6 or 8 big companies.
The promise is this. The promise is that every child's education should be privatised. The promise is this. that all children should be taught by unqualified, low-paid teachers. The promise is this, that all schools should be privatised, taken out of local authority control and be run for a profit. That's the promise.
I think most of us would recognise that public sector staff are incredibly passionate about what they're doing, are the experts at what they do.
Let's make no mistake, actually, about why we're on strike today. The attacks on our pay are about an all-out attempt by the government to privatise education. That's what it's about, pure and simple. The only way you can make a profit out of schools is out of teachers' wages. That's it. We don't produce any money. We get our money from the government, and we pay our money out to services and in teachers' wages. So this is a softening up programme to suppress teachers' wages alongside the academisation programme and the new Ofsted framework, in order within 1 to 2 years to completely privatise education and to hand it over to those big companies. And that's it.
In terms of the legal framework for fire, at the moment there are certain limitations on what a fire authority may choose to contract out, in particular around those emergency activities. Whilst that means that there is scope to contract out for quite a range of activity and in terms of actual activity that happens, a sizable amount of the service, the emergency activities as things stand would not be something that could be contracted out. In terms of arriving at a more complete contracting out situation, where there isn't any retained function in relation to emergency services, it would be a question of legislative change. And the last slide is just some key issues, and I said earlier, it's not an approach that does not have risks or considerations to take into account, and these are some of the issues that are typically key when we've been involved in projects. And if I was going to mention two other things that have been so key in many of these projects, it's staff and pensions, in terms of the cost of moving out of the existing pensions arrangement potentially into a new one, which can be very significant.
The bonuses have started again, but in addition to that, the dividends that are pouring into stakeholders' profits as well, speculators' profits have started again. And you saw that with the sale of Royal Mail.
Yeah.
They sell it at a third the price, so they're making 2/3 profit on nearly 70% profit on it now, for example. So that's the situation with austerity. Interestingly enough, it's not just about cutting the social wage either. They've come up with new ideas. Privatisation not only cuts the social wage, but at the same time it enables the welfare state then to be used for profiteering too. Up until now, we've kept the welfare state safe from exploitation, from privatisation. And even Thatcher wasn't prepared to privatise the NHS. It wouldn't go as far as she's done on prison, or this government has done on prisons, probation and all the rest. So they've seen, in addition to cutting the social wage, they've seen the way in which privatisation can be used to restore profits as well. So one of the big booms in this country at the moment, where the major profits are being made, are in public services that are being privatised. We've seen it with Royal Mail, but the NHS is just as bad. We're seeing the NHS being privatised in the next 18 months. And the profits for the companies that are going into privatisation is absolutely staggering. I'll give you one example in my area. 4 doctors got together to take over the Harmony, the out-of-hours service that would normally be run by the NHS. They've just sold that on to a venture capitalist, and the 4 of them have made 2.5 million each. Unbelievable profit.
It's outrageous.
Yeah. So that's the nature of austerity. It's all about using the economic crisis to basically cut wages, cut the social wage, undermine our public services and privatise as much as possible as they can. It's restoring profitability to the rich.